Welcome to Detailer's Roadmap Cruise Control, helping you navigate the roadways of life, business, and everything in between.
Hey guys, this is Kevin Davis from the Detailer's Roadmap Cruise Control podcast. This is episode 1, our debut, and in fitting fashion, we're starting off with Chris DiGiovanni of Detailer's Roadmap and 8-Bit Creative. Hey Chris, how are you?
Good. How you doing, Kevin?
I'm good. Chris is the president of this little company, and I'm super excited to have him on to kick this off. I think this will be good to get to know him a little bit better, both from a business standpoint and kind of kick off this podcast and set some goals and objectives and kind of get his thoughts on that, as well as all the really good things that 8-Bit and Detailer's Roadmap are great at: SEO, website building, helping with marketing, funnels, consulting, all of that good stuff. So Chris, what would be great, I think, instead of me doing some sort of little canned bio, would be to have you give us a little bit of background, because I know for me personally, I don't really know all that much about your interesting background, how you got started in everything that you're doing, how you ventured into the detailing space,
Sure.
and all that.
Yeah. And I'll kind of keep it pretty short too. So, essentially, I come from a pretty entrepreneur-based family. So my dad had pool table stores. My grandpa had pool table stores. So we were always in the pool table, hot tub, patio furniture business. Loved it. And so had nothing to do with detailing, and I would just detail cars, my own car, obsessively, all the time, paint correction, and loved it. And essentially what was happening is I was helping out my dad's business, and I went in at the wrong time. I went in 2008 when nobody wanted to buy pool tables and hot tubs and anything.
Well, yeah, it's a little hard to buy something for your house when your bank just took your house, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I had always run the cash register since I was 10 years old, and my full-time gig was at my dad's. And I went to school for design, and I'll tell you what, 2008 really taught me how to sell and listen to people. And if you really wanted to make a sale, you really had to listen hard. It was eye-opening experience. So it was very difficult to sell stuff. A $10,000 hot tub was tough in 2008, 2009 to sell. But if I heard, hey, I have back problems and this and that, and it really formed how I do business today, which is listen first and then see if you have a fit. And sometimes you don't. And so when it was in that business for a long time, I wanted to get into it and buy it. It didn't work out. My dad wanted to keep it. I totally get it. Ended up getting into seafood. And then after about 5-6 years, became director of marketing of a $500 million seafood company. And honestly, it was probably one of the best jobs I ever had. It was just, the people were fantastic. And it taught me a lot about the people side, because I didn't have that with my dad's business, because there was only a few of us. So I knew how to sell, and I knew how to market and do creative stuff, and got into the seafood and did SEO and packaging and all that stuff. And I just got bored. That's it. I'm a side hustler like you are, right? You got,
right. Yep.
I always had side hustles. I always had e-commerce stores built. I always took freelance work. And my friend Dave Patterson said, hey, do you still do graphic design? I'm like, fuck yeah, I do graphic design. I'm like, that's all I do. I'm allowed to swear. I don't even know.
You're good. Yeah.
And he said, can you help us out with a catalog at Lake Country Manufacturing? They want a 20-page catalog. And I'm like, sure, no problem. That turned out to be something like 67 pages, the first iteration. And
all digital? Was it a digital catalog? Wasn't a hard
print and digital. They always had really good success with giving something physical. Detailers liked physical, but if you have a high return, if you got to change inventory, print is a nightmare.
Yeah.
And so I was going through the catalog, and I was like, this is crazy. I don't know how anyone can decipher why to use this product versus this. I got it after a while, but I mentioned that to Dave, and then Dave and I started talking about starting something up, and he would consult and help me figure out. And so I started Burke with a lot of heavy lifting with Dave. So Burke was and still is a paint correction primary company. So making paint correction. And I just we whittled it down to like just a few products, a few pads, a few paint correction, just made it super easy, and remove the guesswork. And
so it's chemicals and pads basically is what Burke.
Yeah, chemicals and pads. And Dave was the kind of the product guy, and I was the marketing guy. And then I just got bored and was like, I need to do more. It wasn't enough to do the logo and the website. I wanted to do affiliate marketing, and I wanted to do SEO, and I wanted to run ads and more packaging. And so I think for both of us, it ballooned up really quick. And we started getting a name for ourselves. At that time, I was looking to leave seafood and start doing more design, and more clients came in on the 8-bit side. So the 8-bit side works with manufacturers in the detailing realm primarily. And more manufacturers, hey, we know you have Burke. We don't sell paint correction stuff and pads, but could you do XYZ for us? And then it just started ballooning up. And then it got to an inflection point where Dave was looking to run it and be self-employed versus working for Lake Country. And it was like, he came on and really ran the show and started taking that on. And I started, once again, side hustle. Here it comes again. There's not enough of my day filled up. So I started thinking 8-bit side is really busy. And at that time, it was a few of us, if that. So I had a few people working for me while I had a full-time job, while I was doing Burke at the same time. So I had 3. It was a lot. It was way too much for sure. But I'm sure you can attest, sometimes you just know how to only run at that scale.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think with my 12,
it's not the smartest idea. Right?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, it would not, 1 out of 4 stars would not recommend, right? That's for most people.
Not smart. But that's the only thing I knew. And so, as Dave was taking it on and I was getting out of the full time, I was like, I'm going to strictly do 8-bit creative. I started coming up with some website design styles because my buddy Mike Carlin and Jeremy Casper. So Mike's at IGL and Jeremy is an installer in Minnesota. And I said, they both inquired within the same week for a website. And they said, hey, we know you could build websites. Could you build us one? And I know what websites cost. You got to get an SEO person in, you got to do writing, you got to do correct design. And I would tell them it's going to be $6,000. And I both of them kind of basically told me, fuck off. I'm not spending that.
Yeah. What's that Wix.com? I'm going to use that instead. That costs $39 a month, right?
I'm going to go ahead and give you a no, Dave. I'll take no for 1,000, Bob. And, so I said, well, if I can prove you that it'll turn in ROI within 30 days, could you go on a monthly platform? I get paid, but I make you happy. You get the website I know you should build, and all that stuff. And they said, oh yeah, of course. Who's not going to pay off a site? And so we started doing a couple styles and testing, and Mike Carlin called me the first month. I'm like, hey, how'd it go? And he goes, yeah, I'm used to 1 or 2 form leads. And I'm like, okay, 1 or 2 form leads a day. That's not bad. I get it. He's like, no, per month. And I'm like, Sorry. What do you mean? I'm like, what do you mean 1 or 2 per month? He's like, yeah, the website got 40 leads the first month. And then I tested with Jeremy, and Jeremy's got 30 or 40. And then I tested with another guy, and it got 15 or 20. And then another guy got 60 or 80. And it was all market based a little bit and stuff.
Yeah.
And I knew it was on to something. And, we just haven't looked back, just kind of kept hiring people and all that stuff. And it's a lot of people think it's me, and it's not. We have writers on staff, designers on staff, all the people from the 8-bit side that know how to talk to the manufacturers. They work on the DR side. So for them, it's super easy. And so with websites, we just kind of have a rule, which is mine in general, is do it right or don't do it at all. And you and I are talking using Riverside FM on 2 nice cameras, on some microphones. Your hair's cut right. Apparently you're both, I'm wearing a DR shirt. We're trying to do it right. So that's my goal, is just like,
if you're listening to this, I just showed my DR shirt logo, by the way, if you're just on audio.
And I just hate seeing people getting fucked over on, especially websites. And so the plan was always like, how could we not only develop a website, but it's written well, it gets all their packages. And the biggest thing I always heard is like, they made me a great site, but when I want changes, it was a fucking nightmare. I heard that so many times. And so we developed literally a platform that when they want changes, they don't have to text, they don't have to email, they don't have to call, because they might be done at 9:00 at night. They log in, change this, and it's done within 1 business day. So, and you're kind of a process guy, but that's kind of more or less. That's how sales to seafood to 8-bit to websites kind of did it. So
you missed your calling, being a pool shark, being on the professional pool player, billiard players.
I can't shoot billiards for fucking life of me.
That's hilarious. But I bet you can sit in a hot tub pretty effectively, though. So at least you got that side. You got that side of the business.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know. So, like, I think in the detailing world, especially, and I think in business in general, I think most people see the web and websites. I think this is true for most people, as a necessary thing, but I don't think many people understand the tool that it can be. And I think, like, I was joking and said Wix.com, but like I've been doing web development since the early days of the internet. So I own a web development firm that I've kind of set aside, but it's funny because I've got these clients to where my original clients have actually started to retire because they were older when I started, and they're handing this off to like the next regime in these organizations. And they're like, yeah, we're just going to build, like we have these 87-page WordPress sites for these organizations. And they're like, yeah, we're just going to transfer that stuff all over to Wix. And I'm like, all right, well, and would you, can you do an RFP, give me a request for proposal? And I'm like, nah, thanks. I'm good. You guys enjoy that. Have fun with that. But I think what's kind of contrasts what you think in terms of if someone's out there thinking, hey, let's just do something simple, God forbid, using the Yellow Pages website or something like that. Contrast that in terms of how it is a tool versus what something like, DR would build.
Yeah. I mean, you want me to contrast it of like, what is just a normal website you're saying versus something we would do?
Yeah. Or just in general, like if my tendency as a small operator, as a small operating detail business, that's doing reasonably well, my tendency is to try to spend as little as possible. The crazy thing is, detailers love to spend money on stuff that with a smallish ROI and forget to spend money on the things that have huge ROI. So like my tendency is to say, oh, Wix is, and I don't even know what they charge now, $60 a month for something like that.
24 to 40, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So something dirt cheap that really, it doesn't do much for you.
Well, I mean, if it's cheap and it's easy, what do they always say? If it's cheap and it's easy,
you got cheap, easy, and good. Pick two, right? Cheap, easy, and good. Pick two.
Yeah. So I think a lot of these guys always start on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, and word of mouth and referral. They always start there. And honestly, that's great. Kind of gets them in a habit of like, shout it from the mountain, right? Tell them this is what I'm doing. The problem is if you're only on Facebook, if you're only on Instagram, you're only pertaining to people that are liking or looking at that type of data, right? So like I love old BMWs, but if I'm looking to buy an old BMW, I don't think I'm going to Instagram. I might go to cars.com, or if I need a roof on my house, I'm not going to go cruise Facebook for roofers near me. I'm going to use Google. And so Google and Bing and all these other ones a website is being served to them. So that's where your most potent channel is where buyers are, is you have to be in front of them, right? And so, one's like a billboard on a highway or passing by, but your website on average could usually be about 60% of your traffic overall compared to social. And so a lot of these guys were making mistakes that I noticed, that they would get so down the well on Facebook, and then sure as shit, it was great during the summertime. But then because I have no website presence, I wasn't being found by the 30 people that always worked with me. So I had no new funnel of people coming in and getting in my process. So the website's like a resume. I mean, I always call it like a 24/7 salesman. Here's what I do. Here's what I offer. This is, what I can do for you. This is kind of some examples of work. I personally like to use it as a salesman too. Like, it's very hard if you were cruising on Facebook to understand what packages you offer, what ceramic coatings, what PPF film, all that stuff. On a website, it's all user experience, right? PPF, going to the film page, here's my packages, done deal. And I personally like using the website as a sales piece and say, hey, if you don't have $1,000 for coating, don't talk to me. And, there's an imaginary button. So I do like to put starting at prices, because I really don't want to waste the detailer's time. So the website should pre-qualify people. That's the biggest thing. And so I would say, even if you can get a Wix website up, something's better than nothing for sure.
Right. Right.
But it's kind of like, I kind of always relate it of like, what we do is kind of similar to, like, I think of Chicago Auto Pros every time. Like, if you're going to go get a ceramic coating and your car's hammered, they're not going to even give you certain options, right? You need a 2-step, and we suggest this with a coating or putting film on, and then here's a coating for after that. And we're kind of like that. Like, hey, we're going to only do things the right way. You need this writing, you need this SEO, you need this design, you need a tracking system that can tell you all that stuff. So I know that was a long fucking winded answer. So
no, I think that's great. I think what's interesting is that as detailers, we're very process oriented, right? Like, you always start, and I try to equate, because obviously I've got a detailing background, and a marketing background, and I understand sales funnels and websites and all that stuff. But I think that a lot of detailers don't put 2 and 2 together. So like, when we detail, what do? We do a test spot, right? Like, we tape it off. If we're going to do a correction, we always do a test spot. At least you should be. If you're not, go to some classes. But we do it. We do a test spot. And then, but there's a process. Like, you have to decon the paint. You obviously got to clean the paint. Then you do the correction. Then you do the lie detector. If you're going to do a coating, lie detector prep, or whatever you're going to do to make sure the correction is appropriate. You do your coating. There's maintenance. There's all. So the point is that there's this huge step by step. And if you skip any one of those steps, then something is going to go awry with the end result. And I always think of marketing the same way. And I think most detailers and detail business owners, most business owners in general, I'm not just picking on detail shops, don't understand that you can't just pick one of those elements of your sales process and just focus on that. For example, and I'll give a great example. One of my brands, my off-road brand, we had like 7,000 Instagram followers on that account. Well, something happened along the way, and there was an age verification issue that was not my fault. It just was a technical problem. They shut my account down. I had to start in Kevin. Evidently my business started in 2014, so I am 9. So evidently 9-year-olds can't use Instagram. So they shut my whole thing down. Like, I had to start an entirely new Instagram. And now Ironically, 11 months later, it just magically reappeared. Oh, we're sorry. There was a technical issue. Here's your, well, in the meantime, I'm running all my Facebook ads to the new one and all this stuff. Yeah. But all that to say, I had access to 7,000 people. And then all of a sudden I had no access. Like I had, you know, and the new account for whatever reason now only has like 200 followers. Like people just don't follow it for some reason. Yeah. And so when you put all your eggs in one basket, in that way, that's one of the disadvantages, I think. And you run and Facebook is notorious for shutting your stuff down, right? Yeah.
That's a great way to say it. The eggs and basket thing, right? Like, so if you're shoving it all on Facebook, you're betting the whole house on Facebook. I'm sorry to let you know, but Facebook is in the business of keeping people on their ads platform. Mm-hmm. And so business, and you know this more than anyone, but business should be really treated as, where's your multiple funnels of how you're going to get people? And the biggest one that skipped for a lot of detailers for some reason was websites. And I think a lot of it came down to technical knowledge. And so that's our process, is trying to get all that out of doing it so that they don't have to worry about it. But or they would do it inefficiently, right? Doing a website that looks great, but didn't write and didn't do SEO and didn't have a great call to action system.
Or so any call to actions whatsoever.
If I can give anyone a tip on this, it's like, please, for the love of God, please put more call to actions of book now, call today, schedule now. We put about 100 on every website. And the difference on our sites compared to people's that don't even do half that is just night and day on terms of engagement. But yeah. Stop.
Yeah, I mean, it seems annoying. You know, when you look at it at first, it seems annoying. So there's all these things that they call annoying sales practices. Like I do sales pages that are long form, short form, all that. But like it literally will have, you know, at the top of the page, buy now. Here's a paragraph, buy now. Here's another paragraph and a picture, buy now. Like that. At first, you think that is super irritating and ugly and all that. Well, guess what? There's a reason people do it. It's because it works.
It works. Yep. Yeah, that's exactly it. So stop putting your eggs all on Facebook, for fuck's sakes, please. You know.
Well, and I think the challenge for detailers is that detailing as an industry, and this is a very broad term, can become ego driven, right? Like we like shiny stuff. We like clean stuff. We want to show that off and
show it off.
And so I think the show and shine on Instagram as a marketing strategy can work, but it's not the only aspect. And I think that's something that a lot of detailers are missing. If 80% of your followers are just other detailers showing off the new 911 GTR, that the GTS they polished, then you're not selling them anything.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's a challenge, I think.
Yeah. End results of what you did is tough. To especially paint correction. People think paint correction is like fucking restoring a car sometimes, you know, consumers do.
Yep.
You know, and so like when detailers give us paint correction photos, we literally ask them before, during, and after, and if possible, a photo of you actually performing and having a polisher on your hand or a video explaining it. That little bit, that just tiny nugget of explaining, because remember, you got to pretend like you're talking to someone who doesn't know what paint corrections do and why they even want it. Because they don't understand seeing scratches and then not. They think sometimes it's like a magic product that you put on the car.
Well, Mike Phillips used to be with Auto Geek. He's with Bob McKee now, but he had his great line is 90% of customers can't tell the difference between a swirl and a squirrel. Yep. Like they literally, that's his famous thing he teaches and all this stuff, which is true. Like, especially if you're looking, first of all, I can take a picture of a beat up 84 Camry with the right lighting and the right angle and make it look like I just did a 3-step on it. So, yes. You know, you don't, customers, they don't understand. So I think that's a perfect example of what you're saying is that you need to show, we're trying to educate the customer why they have to pay $1,800 to have their car corrected and coded.
Yep.
And so, yeah,
it can be an education. And, you know, my biggest thing is like when we're doing these websites, I might start with a detailer But my goal is like, I'm going to be working with a business owner that happens to detail or is starting to scale business. So I've been really privileged to see a lot of people grow, start with $100,000 business. And we've got a lot of guys that have grown to 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got quite a bit of 7-figure business companies that, started with us at 600,000 a year, and within a year and a half are doing, 1, 5, 2, 3, stuff like that, big numbers. So, and that's the biggest thing is when you got to think like your consumer. They just don't know. They don't know what you're selling them until you explain it. And so all our job is to explain it for you and make their life easy. Because ironically, if you make their life easy, your consumer, if you make it obvious and say coatings do this, and this is why you get a paint correction and it does that, it actually directly affects the detailer. If you make the consumer's life easy, it actually makes the detailer's life easy. So that's kind of the whole goal.
Yeah, I think most detailers don't think like a consumer. Like they don't. One of the things I've preached forever is you need to put your customer hat on, and everything you do needs to have the customer. And I call it ideal customer. Excuse me, ideal customer avatar. But you can, if you know exactly who you're selling to, then everything you do should be in context with that. I think that most people don't care about shiny paint. I think obviously there's a percentage of people willing to pay, have David Fermani do a $25,000 polish job on their one-of-one car. But I think most people, they want to know, what advantage do I have when the paint is shiny and it's got a coating on it? Like, what does that do for me?
Give me that 3 bullet point list.
Yep, that's right. And so tell me, I think most people probably don't understand let's just do a quick rundown of what a basic sales funnel might look like for most detail shops. That would be my first thing I want to talk about, but I also want to talk about how these guys have gone from a $500,000 business to a $1.3 million business. Like, what does that process look like? And what steps do they have to take? What steps, what kind of back end stuff are we doing? That kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, probably the most basic organic sales funnel. And there's different types of funnels, like doing ads and doing this and that, but like a basic organic, which means someone searches ceramic coating near me or whatever, paint protection film, Charleston, stuff like that. But a basic organic funnel could be the detailer posting on Google My Business to try and get their map profile up higher. And if you don't know what Google My Business is, be sure to go look it up. It's the biggest thing for SEO and local thing, but it's where a customer will come in, click on your website, and the funnel is essentially informing, qualifying, telling people what you do, what you offer, how much you cost, and essentially making a decision. Okay. And there's typically a couple buttons there. And the decision should be call now, book online, get an estimate, get a consultation. But typically your funnel process is website, pull through, visual representation of what you're offering, preferably not a finished car. Are you offering a GT3 or are you offering a coating with a video where the water doesn't seem to stick? Something to think about. And then typically then coming in and saying, book now, schedule now, move on. And then in terms of sales funnel, the next part is onto that detailer where they have a process and say, okay, you looked at this, you said you were interested in this item. Here's what I think it can do in cost. And that's kind of more of a sales technique thing. Does that kind of answer your question on like funnel? I mean, that's the organic route.
Yeah, that's the organic versus paid. Obviously, the difference between organic and paid would be you've actually taken out a Google ad, Facebook ad, TikTok ad, whatever else. And then that drives people to a particular area, site. Page. And so, I mean, and the funnel could actually start in Instagram. It could start on social media that drives them to a particular place. Because I think a lot of guys just are like, well, I give them my website and they come buy from me, right? Like there's a whole process that has to be, our process is we want to make sure that we separate the customer from their money and and provide a good service in the most efficient way possible. And that's what the sales funnel is really designed to do. Because the back end of that sales funnel is follow up and maybe multiple emails and calls and customer management system, like some of the, You're Able and some of the other apps out there that you can use to help with that. And the sales funnel, what I think a lot of guys are missing in the industry now, and you can talk to this, but it's from a coding standpoint. What I've seen over the last 3 to 5 years as codings have become like the thing, right, to do. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of shifting from codings to PPF again and vinyl and all that. Yep. Intent and all those services. But I think what happens is that they forget that sales funnel doesn't stop when that credit card goes through for coding and then they leave. Like there is so much money being left on the table with maintenance washes and follow up and coding, like you can call it a maintenance wash, but let's check, quote unquote, check your coding to make sure that it's holding up correctly, to make sure everything's copacetic and all that. And so that whole sales funnel really needs to extend far beyond when the initial service is provided.
Yeah. So the beginning of the funnel, if you kind of imagine, is kind of almost like what do they call that with the sand, with the fucking
hourglass?
Hourglass.
Yeah.
Almost like an hourglass. So the top of the funnel is how you're going to find leads, and that's organic and Facebook, Instagram, and paid ads and referrals, and you're building just being on a good street, that people drive by. That's top of funnel. And you have some awareness and warmth and how to get to them. And then the middle of the hourglass is essentially the sales point, right? Mm-hmm. You took the credit card and away you go. Most people, like you were saying, they completely forget about that bottom funnel. And it's actually it's the cheapest by far to reactivate sales after,
because there's essentially no acquisition cost. There's no customer acquisition cost because you already paid the customer acquisition cost when you did the first time.
Yeah, I think we did a study, and I think, and this was a mid-market guy. So this was a guy who was doing I think he was doing like $400,000 in sales in a year, and he was running paid ads and doing SEO. And so it cost him I'd say about $48 on average to get someone. Okay. And that could have been expensive paid ad or this or that. So it was about $48. Now I've had guys that are low as $6, and I've had guys as high as $106.
Yeah, but I mean, if you tell me I got to spend $50 for a $1,500 job, I'll take that Las Vegas slot machine all day long, right?
Yep. Cha-ching, ring it every time.
Right. Yeah. How much money will you take from me? I will spend literally as much money as I can print in order to make that happen.
Absolutely. Because you get into like a process thing and scaling.
Yep.
But, and then we ran a test of doing like email solutions, SMS texting, a little bit of print even, believe it or not, and just simple touching base like every 90 days to 6 months. And the cost of acquisition to pull them back in was under $1.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of times people were getting, oh, my wife's got a car coming up. It could have been something just as profound. And I think the easiest way to say it is like, if you have like, let's say an email newsletter that hits people 24 times and asks for Google business reviews and just a customer callback, sometimes it's kind of like signing up. And like when I bought, some new shoes, it's top of mind because I probably bought shoes over a year ago and I just keep seeing that freaking ad on Facebook or a newsletter, and you're just staying top of mind. You don't ever want them to forget that great experience that you paid $50 essentially roughly to go get. And now let's go ahead and just stay in top of mind and constantly keep it in there. You don't want to be forgotten, and we'd love to say that every customer remembers us. But there is a lot.
Well, they may remember us for the wrong things, right? Like you're like, hey, I saw your vet looks awesome. I'm getting ready to get another. I just ordered my C8. Who did you use? I said, well, I used Bob downtown. However, after I got my car coded, I never heard from the guy again. So I'm not sure I'd go to him, like that. You could have done the best job in the world for the most fair price. But if you've got to continue to build the customer loyalty.
Yep. Customer loyalty and retention is huge. That's why when people say referrals, are you really talking about referrals? Or are you talking about retention?
Mm-hmm.
There's a huge difference. So referrals are great. Retention is massive. I mean,
because the referral window is probably relatively short. If you're missing, especially if you miss the retention aspect, the referral may only last for 90 days, 60 to 90 days, because the customer is still on that high every time they go out to look at their car. But if you're not doing maintenance washes, you're not doing checkups, you're not following up with them, then they're going to feel neglected. Or it's simple. If you get the car in there, they're going to be happier because you are the one can say, hey, look, I see that, did you take this thing to a car wash? Well, yeah, I bought this, the $12.99 Brush-O-Matic, downtown. Well, this is what's happening to your car. This is why your car looks like it does. Let's figure out a way to fix it. Hey, Dylan was very, he was very specific that that's not their model. They have one of those, right? Yeah. So I'll speak up for Dylan von Kleist on that one, but not. But like if they're not taking care of their car, which we all know, anybody that's been in the detailing industry knows that they don't. Like almost none of them do. Yep. So then that doesn't reflect on them. That reflects on the coding. They'd be like, well, this guy promised me it would do this and this and this, and it didn't. I have customers that I just got one yesterday. The guy's like, your product completely failed and it didn't do what it was supposed to do. And so the question is, did you follow the instructions and the extra instruction sheet that I gave you? No. Well, okay, then, and so they're going to blame me. They blame the product, right? And they're going to blame the service just like that. So I think that customer retention piece is really, really important to
communication is everything.
Yeah. And I love that bottom kind of, that hourglass idea is something actually I've never really thought much about, but the bottom out part of it. And then it just there's no end. It just keeps going and going and going.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
And it's not that hard.
It's not hard. It's easy. It's cheaper. It's more effective. A lot of these guys want to get more and more leads. And I bet you they could probably financially pull it way cheaper from past customers.
Yeah. Which they're getting referrals from those customers to, like you said, people are swapping cars every 2 to 3 years, 4 to 5 years, whatever.
Yep. I mean, there's one right there. So if you're putting people into an email newsletter funnel, you get their emails when you sell them something. Let's say you've got 400 customers, 24 months for all these new cars coming out. We recommend this. I bet you within 6 months of that period, they're going to probably be looking at something different anyways. So, yeah.
And then new technology and new coatings you may offer, new programs you may offer or whatever, and just educating them about, different things. We send out that kind of stuff all the time. I think most people probably don't understand the difference between cold lead, warm lead, hot lead. Can you kind of walk through that? The point I'm trying to do is just to educate everyone about what this sales and marketing side looks like and how those things are differentiated.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not the aficionado with ads, I'm more of the website and SEO guys, but to me, a cold lead is like completely cold. They don't know you, they might partially be looking for your service, maybe. So this could be like an ad on Facebook that they see a ceramic coating in Joe Blow Town, New York, and they say, how much is a coating? That is maybe slightly warm, kind of starting into the warm thing. But to me, when you're completely either cold calling or putting out an ad and it's just hitting people that have this much money in their Facebook algorithm, right? Mm-hmm. That's a little cold to me. Warm would be ceramic coating near me and your website pops up in the top 5 results. To me, that is someone who is like now warming up, looking or creating education for themselves on what does a coating cost? Who's my guys around me? maybe finding a blog, learning more about it. Because remember, there's no linear buying journey anymore. They want to research a little bit themselves. And then hot is, of course, filled out a form, called someone, I'm looking to book, XYZ. I don't know how you see it, but that's kind of how I see cold, warm, hot.
No, I think that's great. And I think that feeds into what you can do better when you're using an actual website versus, and Google My Business and all these, and we're using sales pages and funnels and all that, is that we want to take, ideally, take that customer from the cold journey onto a hot journey, but that's a much more expensive, much more difficult process than taking someone that's warm. And I know one of the things that you try to do, I think, and I think all SEO and everything, we're trying to get warm. We're trying to pre-qualify people and get rid of the cold leads, right? Like what's the best way to do that?
Yeah. I mean, to pre-qualify people to get rid of the cold leads, best way to do it with the website or a website is essentially show them pricing or show them what you do. And you could stop that tire kicking right there. Or potentially have an education video. I mean, here's the perfect example is like, if you're going to put an ad out on Facebook and you're just targeting people in your area and they have money, well, then that's targeting everybody, men that like cars, that might work a little bit better. A perfect example is if I wanted to sell websites more on Facebook, I wouldn't target detailers. You need a website. I would target detailers that also have been to Wix.com, GoDaddy.com, who are probably building their own site and probably getting frustrated and say, oh, there's a solution here for me. They build websites for detailers and I can stop screwing around on my website and getting bad results. I can go to someone who's, has a complete solution and can provide a high ROI. And I would probably run an ad that says, are you sick of editing your website all night and not getting good results? Right. So you kind of got to think of it like that. So in terms of like, where you're putting money is like websites can do so much value for you because people are searching for your service way closer to the bottom of that hourglass again, right? They're way lower. They're not just, they don't have money in your town. They're not at the top of that hourglass. They're way down lower because they're looking for coatings or they're looking for film and tint or detail. And so maybe you should have your ads on Google ads and stuff like that. And I don't have anything against Facebook, and this is not a Facebook slam party fest because it does work. It absolutely does.
Well, it used to work better before iOS 14. I can tell you right now that it doesn't work nearly as well as it used to.
It doesn't work as well as it used to. And then I think a lot of people do what I do. I pretend I'm in the consumer message or talk to someone and then just fucking space out after an hour or, like, if I didn't get a response, I'm already moved on. Right. And so Facebook tends to be, in my opinion, a higher tire kicker rate. Now, that being said, some guys have an amazing results out of them. But I think like what we talked about in the beginning is multiple channels, multiple funnels. And from what we see on the data side, which is and I don't like to give out numbers, but we've launched hundreds of sites, detailing sites specifically. The person that comes through on a Facebook ad on average spends 19 seconds on your website. Someone who comes through on an organic search, ceramic coating near me, and maybe we're doing SEO, they spend on your website between 1 minute and 52 seconds to 2 minutes and 14 seconds.
Which is a long time.
That means you're talking to someone who's looking for what you offer, is interested in what you have to say, and is investigating and is probably going to make a purchasing decision. And then Google Ads, it's right in the middle, ironically. It's like right at 40 seconds to 1 minute. So it's probably money shoppers a lot of times. They're still looking for you, don't get me wrong. But it's not that's the raw numbers of Facebook versus Google Ads versus organic. Organic, way higher, spending way more time on the site. They're informing themselves and they're going to make a purchasing decision on the spot. Yeah.
And I think there's, we talk a lot about efficiency when it comes to detailing cars and the jobs that we do and coding and all that. And I think if these guys could do better with the efficiency in terms of what they're doing with sales and marketing online, I think they would see such a huge benefit. I mean, how many pictures are these guys taking of one particular car, which I can't, like, I don't have that kind of time. Whenever I don't detail full time anymore, but when I did, like, I'm not going to spend 3 hours on the car and an hour taking pictures and 45 minutes editing those pictures and 15 minutes. You know what I mean? Like I think that's the math that a lot of people are doing. And so there are ways to, first of all, so you can minimize the amount of work that you're doing because you have a good website. You're doing more deliberate things so that you can post to Instagram, post to Facebook, post to TikTok, but have that sales funnel in place so that then you can, and then if you've got the call to action set up correctly, the information set up correctly, you hear this a lot. I hear this a lot also, which is, hey, well, I don't want to put prices on there because I want to talk to everybody because I can sell everybody. That's just not true. Right. And so if that's something that works in your business and you happen to be the best salesperson that was, born, that's awesome.
I think you hit it on the head right there. If you're a great salesperson, that's a great opportunity. Call us for a quote. Boom. I think you hit it spot on. You enjoy the sales process and you're going to actually pick up that phone when people call in because it will light up.
Yeah.
If I asked you today, what does a roof cost? Are you going to be able to tell me?
Well, I can because I actually build. I actually know how to build them. It depends on what area you're the country in.
Yeah.
In Oklahoma, it's 7,500. In my town, it's about 12.5. In your, in New York, it's about 15.5.
Sure. Oh, great. I'm talking to the roofing master. Never fails. Most people don't know what coatings cost, and so.
Right.
I think you kind of hit it on the head. If you're going to pick up the phone and you have a sales process and really have a CRM to put people in and then member funnel, get some email chase. If you're great at sales, take pricing off. But if everything didn't have pricing on Amazon, I don't know if Amazon would ever sell a lot of stuff. And
they wouldn't sell anything.
They would. People really want to know what stuff costs. And if they're within the range, they want to talk, maybe get some more information or just buy. This is what I thought it costs, right? But if you put starting at prices or, hey, small car and large vehicles, like, hey, it might be this. If they didn't have $800 for a coating, they thought coatings were $200. I'd rather you not get the phone call at all, personally.
Yeah.
Because your time is more expensive as the business owner and salesperson than to go through that whole process. Right.
And I would just encourage everybody now to, if you believe that you can sell people, which is great, I would still take a look at your data. I'm a data guy. How many calls do you convert? If you're converting 80% of the people that call you, that's amazing. If you're converting 15% and it's costing you 3 hours a week, and you're billing yourself out at whatever, $140 an hour, $100 an hour, and you're blowing $1,500 a month on tire kickers worth of your time, then that's where the numbers fall short. And I think that being able to get those when we used to talk about when people call and say, well, how much is a detail? My answer is not, X number of dollars. It's, well, how much are you looking to spend? Right. And so your website can ask that question ahead of time because you may have here's a sealant, here's a wash with a sealant package. It'll give you 90 days, 120 days, whatever, 4 to 6 months, whatever that coating, whatever that sealant is, maybe that's the $250 mark. A 9-year, 10-year coating may be $1,800 and require a certain amount of correction. So that really asks that question for you, and you don't ever have to take that call because then theoretically they're going to call and say, hey, I got $200 to spend. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, I want to do your sealant package. Then you may have so they're already buying, right? And you can say, well, for an extra $100, we can do a 5-year or whatever, and so that's where the sales process still comes in. But what you do is you get rid of somebody that thinks they're going to get a 10-year coating for $150, right?
Yep. And I mean, to put some real world data there is like, if you go through our process you do our three things is great design, great writing, lots of call to actions, and put some starting at pricing and packages, you'll on average close around 72 to 78% right from the website.
That's really good, by the way.
The moment you pull that starting out, cut it right down to 30%. That's the average that we typically see. So it does mean you'll get less leads, but I would really ask you at the end of the day, did you want the guy who thought ceramic coatings were $2.99?
Yeah. Well, and the data there is not the 30 to 70, the print. The data is that you now spend 2.5 times, more time to get that sale than you ordinarily would. Right.
Yep. And don't be concerned about your boy down the street who's $100 less than you. You should be able to tell the story with your coatings, your look, your visuals, your website, your ability to talk to people and communicate. You should be able to get that $100, $200, $300 more every time. You believe in your services, right? Fuck yeah, I would hope so.
Yep.
It's not the big guy. If you notice, the big guys are never cheaper than maybe the solo entrepreneur. They're always more expensive.
Yeah.
They're not doing PPF partial fronts for $6.99. They're $16.99. So
yeah, because there are customers for everybody, right? And there are enough. There are literally tens of millions of cars, millions of car owners. And so I don't really ever worry too much about different competitors and what they're charging and all that, because then that's what they call that, doing price-based business is a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
As they say, unless you want to be the Walmart of detailing and do, $12.97 full details, and that's $12.97, not $1,297. It's just not, I like your point that if you believe in what you're doing, and I've always done value-based pricing, right? Like there's a certain type of buyer and customer that will automatically assume that you're better because you're more expensive. And the customers that think that person's just too expensive, you don't want to deal with them anyway. Why do you want to? Those guys are the biggest, people that are 100% price shopping only. And granted, I know everybody's got a different budget and all that kind of stuff, but those customers tend to be the biggest pain to deal with long term, because the less they want to pay, the more they demand from you. And you will be wishing you had never talked to that person.
Yep. It's the inverse relationship. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And so that's really important.
Yeah, you're spot on.
So tell me kind of what the journey might look like for a detail shop that's doing 500,000. Let's say they're doing 10,000 a month, which is actually a pretty good month, right? So they're doing 120 a year. What might that journey be for them to do $250,000? What might their web journey be? Sort of the return on investment, what investment they may need to make, what the services. I mean, this is not a sales presentation, but because we're talking about website stuff and we know that, there's an ROI here, I'm interested to see how do I get there? If I'm a guy listening, and I mean, I could be doing $5,000 a month. How do I get to doubling where I am right now?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's typically what we see about 4 plateaus, just to be completely honest. And it's the plateau between $5,000 and $10,000 a month. And then there's another plateau at 25 to 30, another one usually around 45 to 60. And ironically, there's another one pretty close to 100 that we notice. And so most of the time, why those plateaus occur, it's actually ironically other channels of marketing, not just I need to throw in another $1,000 in ads, or I need to spend $2,000 on SEO instead of $1,000. It's usually funnels and opportunities to find more people. So your question was hey, if I'm spending $5,000 to $10,000 a month, I'm having a great month. I'm having my $10,000 in June. Maybe I'm having my $5,000 in December. Let's say he's a $120,000 business on average. Typically, to get to the next scale up, it's in my opinion, personally, is make sure all your cards are in order, which means you're not solely on the Facebook and Instagram. So you have a website that will kick you at least a 10 for sure within typically 1 year to 18 months. And then opening up.
Wait, I got to stop you because I saw this ad on Facebook that this guy said he could do it in less than 2 weeks. That's not true. It takes a little while.
I need 20 coding jobs within 14 days.
Yeah.
Yep. And a lot of it can be even just processes and potentially even hiring someone, of like, you got to really start determining who you are in the business. Are you the sales guy or are you the coding guy? Because it's very expensive to have you detailed and do the $250 exterior and the $300 interior. Would your time be better spent maybe running an ad, or maybe you're not an ad guy? Maybe you're the ceramic coating and sales guy. And so that 10 to 20 jump is usually a change of mindset that I typically see. I see someone who's not talking about my prices are wrong or something like that. It's usually what's my next channel that I need to integrate. And so that could be ads, sometimes SEO. It just depends on your market. SEO is actually not a fit for everybody. But a lot of times it could be like ads or different channel marketing, Google business posting like crazy, or stuff like that. And then usually at the 25,000 mark, when you're getting close, when you're getting over 15, 18, 20,000, when you're getting close to that, that's where you're usually doing not only scaling budgets, but you're usually bringing in something like SEO. And then I personally don't really see it too often where it's just coding and detailing gets to 40,000 a month. That usually is a bridge with tint or PPF. That's
multiple services, right?
Yeah, that's usually where I see the scale, which really means more people, right? Because you can't just all of a sudden bring in PPF and add 25,000 to your monthly. You probably can add 10, but is it taking away from your coatings, which you can pump out 3 cars a day versus PPF is 1 car in 2 days.
And so that could be partnering too. Like there's different models for that. I think that 100%. Will change the economics of it and the margins, but you may be able to partner with someone locally and either go together, farm out, any of that kind of stuff. You're going to take less revenue and less profit for each one. But
yeah. I think the detailer model is always they want to master it and then hand it off, which I understand. I totally get it. I would say probably most detailers are great at detailing, paint correction, and coatings, but it's almost like film and tint. Those guys are made with different blood. You know what I mean? Like, they're just different. And a lot of times, so when you're bringing in that guy, that's the next scale is services. Because what we're seeing on our side is that most people go coatings and then tint. Boom. We're already starting to step into a $20,000 a month business. Tint is actually, ironically, a higher search volume in about most of the country than detail, believe it or not. So that is super crazy. It always in February, tint outpaces detailing. And so you're just scaling your services because a lot of people are turning into, I want my car detailed. I want it coated. Hey, while you're here, do you have tint? Oh, you do offer paint protection film. I was going to go down the street to the guy. Oh, you do. So now you're turning a ticket of $1,200 into $3,600 4 times over. There's $12,000 right there in a week and a half. So usually that 20,000 bump is typically scaled of services in the business itself. That's how I usually see it. And there's always sure as shit right at $45,000, $60,000 a month. I typically am seeing like, hey, we do ads. What about SEO? Or, hey, we do tons of SEO. What about ads? And it's usually bringing in both and then scaling a little bit. And that gets you to that $80,000 to $90,000 a month bump typically. Now, not every market that we're talking about is going to ever hit $90,000 a month or $50,000.
Right. So like if you live in friggin' Iowa or whatever in a 30,000 person town, you gotta be realistic with some of these numbers, but.
Yep. Yep.
And there may be multiple locations, right? With this, I mean, we could be talking about multiple locations and pretty large staff.
Yeah, like single solo entrepreneurs. The most I really ever see a guy do, it's like 225.
Which is
so
busy. That's a lot.
That's a lot. I mean, he's probably doing film already, or has really cornered coatings quite a bit. You could sure shit tell the competition's going to be aware of that pretty soon.
Yeah.
And
you have to examine your own market too, right? Like that, your coating market may be really good. The detailing market may not be that great. Like for us here, snow's been on the ground since October. Exterior detailing is not a thing here. Like you're not going to make a lot but we can do, pre-season, post-season coatings and corrections and all that. You may need to look at other markets. If you live in an area, my buddy, whenever I stopped detailing, I kind of handed him my business, all my clients and all that. And a few of them were aviation, and he literally just split his company in two because we have a lot of billionaires that live up here or that don't live up here, but travel here. And so he split into doing aviation detailing, which requires different insurance and different, all that. But there could be, don't just think of diversification in those levels as only, tent versus PPF versus coatings or whatever. Make sure you look at other avenues. If you live in an area that has boats, even if it's just lakes, marine detailing can be, and those, like you said, tent guys, vinyl guys, marine detailers are their own animal. And I would, I haven't talked to Parker in a while, but just talk to Parker Richards out of Colorado, and you'll know that the boat detailers are a little bit strange. And I love that guy.
And I should say too, in that 225 number, a lot of times that's that guy who's like maybe outsourcing a tad bit there too, like PDRing and tint. That's a really sharp business owner who's doing quite a bit. I mean, if you're truly all inclusive, it's tough over 125, I think.
Well, there's only, there's only so many hours in the day. If you're interested, and I'm sure you've read this book, which is the E-Myth Revisited, right? The second edition of that. And that really explains, I think that's educational for people, because I think there are a lot of people that think they're entrepreneurs, and what they end up, and there's nothing wrong with it, but like but you're better suited as a small business owner that has a small shop and just makes a living and enjoys your life. And, I don't want anybody working 100 hours a week, to build a business. It doesn't make any sense. So that's a great book to kind of give you some information on the difference between being a technician and being a business, being an owner. And in order to scale to the numbers you're talking about, there is no technicians running a company at that point.
No. Yeah. Even in our business, I hate organization. First hire was, our director of success. I hate writing. There comes the writer real quick. So I can do it all. I'm just not great at it. So, and should always.
Well, I'm terrible at this, and I'm a multipreneur, right? Like I like you, I get bored, but I am the worst at not trying to do everything. So that's it's so, especially because a lot of detailers are like us, which they're anal retentive and they want things done right. And it's difficult to hire other people to do things for you. Right. So, go ahead.
We can do it right. We can build a website right.
Yeah. And you've got a team to do it though, right? Like there's only, you can't be on the phone with, salesperson and trying to handle and new customers and all that while you're writing copy and while you're doing sales pages and all that. You just, same thing with detailers. You can't be, a big shop. If you're going to want to do more than 120 grand a year, you have to have multiple people. And it's a big thing with ROI, because a lot of guys are like, I can't afford to hire anybody. What does that look like? And you have to know your numbers. That's the first thing. We can talk more about that, but you need to see the ROI on your time. If I can employ two guys that make, $25 an hour or whatever the rate is in your town, and I can bill that out at $150 an hour, then that's pretty good math, right? So, well, I think that's cool. I think, I think the point that we all, I don't think it's any secret. We want people to have good websites. I mean, first of all, like you said, Wix is better than nothing. So if that's a starting point, use some of these techniques, the pricing issue, the photos, spend less time on Instagram showing off to other detailers and more time everywhere showing off and educating your customers. Right? Like go ahead.
And I'll give a shout out. There's Rolly Abshire, Jason Honorness. I really like Ben Runkle at High Def Detailing. Yep. These guys are like creating video, Instagram, static content, of talking to their customer of what does it do? Why does it do it? And how to get a hold of them.
YouTube,
YouTube is a big thing. And if your website doesn't kind of relate that information, you're just, please, for God's sake, stop taking pictures of finished Porsches. That's all I would have to say. And that could be the title, please, no more finished Porsche photos.
There you go. So, yeah. I think that's great. Well, how do we, let's say they want to start some, I need a better website. I need SEO. I need some advice, whatever. How do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, if you're a warm lead and if you've been down the funnel a little bit.
If you're just tire kicking, don't waste our time, man. So all tire kickers should go to stopwastingmytime.com. That's the
listen, we preach what we preach and do the exact same thing. So on our website, which is detailersroadmap.com, we show you what we do, we show you examples, we show you our pricing. Because we do the same thing on your sites. It's the same. I want people to know what they're getting into. I want them to see examples. We want them to do it. And we always have a consultation. So right on Detailers Roadmap, book a demo, make appointment. And honestly, we'll tell you if we're a fit or not based on what we hear about your business, where you are. I mean, a lot of it is just straight up like, tell me about you. What is your goals? And I'll just tell this really quick, tiny story, and I'll make it really quick because I know we're in a night. But, we've launched hundreds and hundreds of websites. But my very first website I sold outside of Mike Carlin and Jeremy Casper was a guy in California that had no domain, never had a website before. He was pretty much the only guy I really ever lost. 2 weeks later, I'll never forget, he called me and said, "Where's all the leads? Where are they coming in? When will my business flourish?" And that was my mistake. I did not correctly communicate expectations of when you don't have a domain and you never had a website. Google's going to take X amount of time. So when people get on a consultation with us, we'll tell them realistic expectations if they've never had a domain, or my favorite, if you've had a website that doesn't work at all for you, which is honestly our most common customer. We can really show them an ROI and tell them everything and show them everything with visuals and make it clear. But we will always be completely honest and give you expectations. So, and we have another sales guy, Pat, and, maybe in a year from now, we'll have more sales guys, who knows, but we'll always just tell you how it is, what we see, real world expectations. We'll never let you guess, if that makes sense.
And you'll get plenty of follow up on the back end and then the bottom part of the funnel. Don't worry. I did want to point out something I don't think we made clear. We threw around numbers like $5,000 and $6,000 for websites and all that kind of stuff, which is the value. But that's I don't have to come up with $5,000 or $6,000, right, to get started.
No, yeah. So we do what's called a partnership model, which is basically, when someone comes in, we sell a website basically at a quarter or a third of the price, and then they can actually go on a monthly plan. So they might come in at, let's say, just $2,500, which we can split that payment up a little bit. And then they go on a monthly, and all of our pricing's on our website. And they basically, on top of that, they get Amazon server hosting, SSL security. My biggest thing is our post-launch support, which if you have anything you need changed, we basically take care of it. We take care of it within one business day. I mean, the support is really what we're known for. Most detailers have package changes, brand changes. Maybe they're preferring different call to actions. I have to add my Facebook pixel for my ads. Can you guys install that? We take care of all that stuff. That's not an additional charge. That's kind of part of the package. And so, yeah, you don't have to put up 6, 10, 15 grand, unless you want to. We can do it that way as well. If you really want to do it that way, absolutely can. But the benefit is probably the monthly system. So that's where people see the largest thing. So
yeah. So I mean, it's a great ROI without, feeling like you have to mortgage, add another mortgage in order to pay for in order to build the business. So, cause it's expensive to run a business.
Yeah. Less than a couple $100 to get in with us on the monthly. And, I know we're willing to take the risk on our end and put up a value of a $6,000 site for knowing that we're not going to get that for a long time. Mm-hmm. I'm willing to take that risk because I know my model for detailers, PPF, and tint shops work. We know it. We absolutely know it. So
awesome. Well, head over to detailersroadmap.com. Pat is waiting for your call. We'll pretend we're on a Jerry Lewis telethon. No one's gonna know. He's operator. Yeah, not androgynous Pat, which I don't even know if you can say that anymore. Honestly, I don't think that's very politically correct. But
there it is. First episode already in.
Operators are standing by, waiting to help you take your business to the next level. So, hey, Chris, thanks very much. I appreciate this. I think this is super informative and a great way to kick off this new podcast. So you guys stick with us and check out the next episodes.
Awesome. Thank you.
See ya.
Get your one-stop success solution at detailersroadmap.com today.